questions as we go, and we will address them. And then when we're kind of through our questions, we can mute people, and you can verbally ask them to people that are rather different. So welcome, Steve.
Hey, excuse me, just before we get in there, Kativa, is it just me that's having a little bit of an audio problem, or okay? Because I mean, our broadband here at work is great, but it was a little bit of you were cutting in and out, so hopefully.
I can hear you. It's just me, probably. Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just one. I don't think that'll hinder us, but because it's kind of between Mike and I, so yeah. Okay.
Okay. And just
all right, Steve. Well, I'll kind of take over. For those that don't know me, my name is Mike Castle. I'm a wealth advisor at First Citizens Bank. I'm going to be the moderator today. I chair the program committee that puts these events on, and First Citizens is also the sponsor for the CEO Conversation Series. So that's a happy coincidence that I work there. Thanks for being flexible, everyone, as we try to do this in the virtual world. As Kativa said, we're pleased to welcome Steve Doerfler as the next speaker in the Chamber's CEO Conversation Series. Steve started his journey at Metalcraft in 1984 as an independent manufacturer's representative covering Nebraska, Kansas, and western Missouri. He was later named the sales manager and became a minority owner of the business. In 1998, Steve was recognized for his successful work at the company and named Vice President of Sales and Marketing. He earned the title of President and CEO in 2012 and has been a key figure in making Metalcraft the successful company it is today. We're eager to learn more about Steve's journey through his professional career this morning. We can't really give him a round of applause, but if everybody will do that in their minds, we'll turn this over to Steve. So Steve, again, thanks for coming. Just kind of as a start, is there anything, I gave you the 10-second bio there. Is there anything you'd like to expand? Just maybe tell us how you ended. Have you been in Metalcraft your whole professional career? Was that a job shift? Kind of tell us about your professional life just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Mike. I'll provide a little bit more context on that as well. First of all, when I graduated school, I graduated from Iowa State in 1979, which seems a long time ago. I went to work for Caterpillar in Peoria. And I went to work for them, and it was a combination sales marketing support program for the dealerships. They had three main divisions. They had the tractor side, which was their biggest side. They had the engine side, which was kind of new to them. And then they had the lift truck side, which unfortunately, if you went there, that was kind of a career killer. So after the 5-month training class where we had kind of intense training, I ended up on the engine side. So I spent 4 years with Cat, and then I ended up becoming the manufacturer's rep. I kind of went down that route. And I'm going to allude to that with one of the questions with regard to good and maybe not so good leaders. So I've been at Cat, been at Metalcraft nearly my entire business life, that's for sure. I officially celebrated 30 years because the first 6 years I was independent manufacturer's rep, so not actually employed by Metalcraft. So 30 years I've spent at Metalcraft, and it's been a great 30 years for me. Now, one of the key things that maybe you need to give a little bit more highlight to was actually in 2006, my business partner and I, Doug Peterson, led a buyout of our previous owner, Wally Smavey. And many of you may know Wally. He's still on our board. And so we led that buyout, and then Doug became CEO, and I was president at that time. And then Doug retired in 2012, and then I became president and CEO in 2012.
Very good. Thank you. So that, as you kind of indicated, the one of the first questions we always like to ask at these things is, everyone has typically had some good mentors in leadership and some good examples as they've gone through their career, and oftentimes you've had probably a bad one or two in there somewhere. Could you maybe tell us just a little bit about, maybe by name if you want to talk about the positive ones, and maybe more anonymously if you want to talk about some examples of maybe a poor leadership that you've experienced?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Yeah, and you're right. When I went to Caterpillar, I had a lot of good mentors, a lot of good leaders there, and I had a couple bad ones. And with Caterpillar, it's, although I was only there 4 years, they just cycled through very, very fast, and so it seemed like I was always with a new leader. But here they sent me out to the field in 12 months after I had a total of a year and a half training, which is way, way too early. So I wasn't even 24, and I was supposed to be telling the dealers and providing a lot of guidance to these dealers who have been in business for years and years, and I'm not even 24. So I went down to, they shipped me off down to New Orleans. So I had responsibility for dealers in Louisiana, Mississippi. And I'm going to give the bad case first because I like to end on the high note. So a not so good experience I had was in 1982, the oil prices tanked heavily. So, and on the engine side of the business, that really affected us because we were really driven by marine and oil business. And so we had an austerity program. I mean, an austerity program where any kind of a company event that was, say, a sales meeting, a leadership meeting, you needed to room with another, you had a roommate. Which was always kind of an interesting experience because you didn't know who you were going to get. And as a cat rep, it was really great because we stayed at, usually, prior to this, we stayed in very nice hotels. We could eat at very nice restaurants. We could wine and dine customers and dealers. It was a nice life. And then the austerity program came in and it was like, cut expenses, cut expenses. So I took that to heart. I'm an Iowa kid. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. So I had this one division manager who was my boss's boss, and my boss was a pretty good guy, but the division manager was, he was a little arrogant. He had spent his entire career on the tractor side. He kind of looked down on the engine side, but they put him in the engine side to supposedly round him out. And unfortunately, he didn't know much. He really couldn't provide much value to us. So I took it to heart, and I had this very tough relationship with them. So they wanted to travel with me, and we went to Shreveport, Louisiana. They flew in, and I put them up at a Days Inn. The Days Inn where you enter from the outside, and I tell you, I've never heard somebody squawk so much in my life about the Days Inn. And I thought, from that point, I said, this guy is really not walking the talk. It's all about you guys cut the expenses. I'll continue to live and order the wine, which he did at the restaurants. He ordered the best bottle of wine, whatever. And I thought, what a poor example. That's not an example of the servant leader that I hope to be. So on the good side of things, I've had a couple of really, really good mentors and leaders at Metalcraft. I'll start off and talk about a little bit about Wally. And I respect Wally a lot. Again, he continues to be on our board. He's about 82, but still very active. He's been involved in Metalcraft since 1959, so shortly after I was born. And Wally really just provided, he was authentic. I could have authentic dialogue and conversations with him. He really pushed us for teams, creating teams where we didn't make all the decisions, where we got our teams involved and developed our people so that they could make the decision. And he was very detail-oriented, extremely detail-oriented. And I learned a lot from that. But the environment was very positive. When I say the environment, to give you an example, I've never heard Wally curse, never. And I like that. I mean, he just, when you had leadership meetings, when you had company meetings, it was all on the same playing field. So there's just absolutely no bad language whatsoever. I heard him say a couple interesting phrases before, but I think the most interesting phrase I heard him say was "holy balls," and I'm thinking, but that's as close as he got to anything. But I like that environment, and today I employ that same environment. There's absolutely, we do not use, and I'm not naive enough to know that it doesn't go on. But if I hear it, I'm going to go to that individual and just say, and actually, I had this conversation with one of our leaders, our members in leadership. It wasn't like terrible language, but it wasn't fitting in. And I said, this is why we do that, and completely respected it, completely got it. and reset that. And every conversation I've had with somebody about that, they reset. So with Doug Peterson is the second person. Doug, I've just respected all my life. And again, he's chairman of our board. But Doug and I became very, very close because he was on the finance side. I was on the sales and marketing side. So when we bought out Wally, we became extremely close. We worked together for 6 months to get the deal done. And in reality, I would have been extremely happy writing out my career as president and he as CEO. And why did I say that is because he had such a calming influence. He had this calming demeanor, extremely analytical though, extremely analytical as a finance side. But he was definitely a CFO, not an accountant from that perspective. He was a visionary kind of guy. And he developed the Esop for us. So he was visionary from that perspective. So just a real solid partner. And we didn't meet that much because we had a really, really tight schedule throughout the week. But we would always meet Thursday afternoon for a couple of hours. And then Saturdays we'd work and we'd talk. And I was really disappointed. I knew he was going to retire, but I was very disappointed. So two good examples that I wanted to follow up and talk a little bit about the skill set there.
Sure. You mentioned Wally and his encouragement of working with your team, involving your team. I know that's very buzzword, and all the books talk about that now. Was he a little ahead of his time, maybe in that sense? Before that was a thing in leadership that he encouraged that and did that.
Yeah, I think he was ahead of his time because he actually he wanted us to go to self-directed teams where there was actually no leader of the work team itself, no supervisor of that particular team. Now we actually did go to one self-directed work team, and unfortunately we weren't quite ready for that. And there's got to be there has to be a lot of experience. A lot of capabilities within that team to go to a self-directed team. But yeah, I think he was because he wanted to push down decisions. He wanted to empower, engage our members. And that's something really important for us today is just how we engage our members, because the more that we can engage our members, the more successful we're going to be. And guess what? The happier they're going to be and the more opportunities there are for them. So yes.
Sure. Let's maybe kind of jump into present time, and right now everyone's work environment looks different given the public health situation we're dealing with. Talk about how that's affected your business, specifically, and maybe what you've had to do differently as a leader to make sure that everyone's able to do the things they need to do.
Yeah, Mike, I'm just assuming you're talking primarily about COVID-19.
Right, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm 63 and I've never seen anything like this in my life. Now I know my dad has. My dad was actually quarantined. His full family was quarantined for 2 months when he was 16 because of illness. And so they've seen this kind of stuff. He saw the Great Depression. He saw the Dust Bowl in Texas. So he lived through all that. We haven't lived through this. So I haven't really talked to anybody who's been through something like this. All the companies in the association I belong to, I don't know of anybody who's not affected by this. And so we took an approach because we went through a 2008 flood where our first floor was totally flooded, and that was somewhat of a disaster, but it was localized and it was fairly fast. In 3-4 months we dug out, and as soon as we dug out, we had the Great Recession. So the biggest thing I learned is, and again, at that time, we only had the business for 2 years. I learned 3 really key things, and that is 1, proactive. You want to be as proactive as possible. 2, you want to have liquidity, so review the liquidity. And 3, communication. So we really focused on those things right away, and we were proactive because our supply chain was out of China for RFID products. And we started seeing disruptions because of COVID-19 over there. So in the leadership meetings, we started tracking this actually late January, all through February. And then we started tracking when it came to the US. We started tracking cases. We did not believe it was going to get as bad as it did. There's no way we believed that at the time. So when this thing hit, we had a trade show. Just to give you a quick example, we had a trade show in early March, and our COO, Kyle Bermel, and I talked about the people going, and I simply said, I think we need to self-quarantine, Kyle. And it was like, that was radical. I mean, he said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I think we need to self-quarantine for 14 days. We just don't know enough about this. So we got on top of this from a health and safety perspective. And that's the other thing too, from being proactive, is health and safety of our members was paramount. So we really focused in on, from a proactive side, that became liquidity, but we also focused in on the health and safety. What do we need to do to keep our business open? We knew we were going to be an essential business, and we were, although fortunately the state of Iowa did not shut down anyway, totally shut down for manufacturing. But we needed to try and stay open. So how do we do that? So we made a lot of adjustments here. Manufacturing did a great job by adjusting shifting hours, having fewer people in. We have one-way walk paths, for instance. We have face masks or face shields. So from a health and safety perspective, we have the business continuity team meets a couple times a week on that, and we stay up to date. There's also a service, lo and behold, out of Clear Lake, Iowa. I think it's Biomed Services, if I get the name right, that can fog your facility in a matter of 3 hours. We've done that 3 times. We just did it Sunday. And we don't have any outbreak here. Fortunately, knock on wood, we haven't had an infection. We haven't had to be down, but we've got a plan if we're down. So that's kind of the health and safety. In terms of liquidity, we immediately reached out, renegotiated a loan with our bank. We extended our credit line as well. We doubled our credit line. We just wanted to get a handle on liquidity. And in March, we're thinking this thing is going to be awful. What's our business going to do? We ran financial models for RQ3. Right now, we're in RQ3 because our year starts in October. And we looked at it from 15% of revenue to roughly about 40% of revenue. And 40% of revenue would be the best case scenario. We said, okay, what's cash flow look like? Because we made the decision very early on. I'm sure a lot of you read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if there's some that are viewing this, if you haven't, it's a great, great book. And I looked at, I think it's chapter or habit 2, begin with the end in mind. And it just clicked to me like, I don't want to live my life thinking that this is going to be around forever. So I began with the end in mind to saying, how does this look when we come out of it? So I wanted to keep our team. I wanted to keep our team intact. I didn't want to have layoffs. So we made that decision very early, even before the CARES Act. We made that decision. We looked at liquidity. We can go 4 months. We're good. And we don't think it's going to last that long by keeping the entire team. So we did that. And then in terms of communication, we upped the communication a lot. I started doing videos. Some of them I tried to get a little humor in the videos, but I would do a YouTube video, post it out there. They were almost weekly, and then I'd do a written communication. Now I've kind of tapered off on the videos. And I've gotten very good feedback on the videos, but as you can tell now, it's tough for me to get stuff in 5 minutes. But I'm keeping it to 5 minutes on the videos, but I also intermix that with written communications. We've gone to Q&As, where we have live Q&As. Right now, we've got a Q&A coming up for second shift on Thursday. Every 2 weeks, we have a Q&A for first shift. And these are live events, 30 to 45 minutes. I'm really impressed with the questions we have from our members. So that's some of the things that, that's what we did. Now, fortunately, our business is much, much better than we anticipated. The 2 worst months are over, April and May, and we did not lose money. The good thing is we were profitable in those 2 months, and they were 27% down. The future is extremely bright. We've got a lot of great things happening because we pivoted to face shields, and the face shield business has opened up a huge market for us. Both the mask and the mask portion of the face shield and the entire face shield. So our CEO, Kyle Bermel, did just a wonderful job driving that business, organizing the team. The members rallied around it, and that's been huge. but then we also are looking at reshoring some things from China. So we're looking at the possibility of actually producing our own inlays, which is the antenna and the chip that we source out. There's equipment out there that we're looking at doing, because the big push, 40% of the manufacturers out there are saying, we want to resource, we want to reshore, I should say. And I think there's going to be a wave of that. So we think the future is bright. Our Q4, which is July through September, we're extremely optimistic about.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on having successful outcomes here over the last couple of months during these tough times. You know, as you mentioned the Q&A session and a few things that I took to be new things that you were doing as a result of what's been happening. Have you found some of those things? I know there's been things in our organization that we've done where, like, you know what, this is a really good idea. We probably could keep doing this, you know, this worked really well. Have you found some examples of things like, gosh, why weren't we always doing this?
Yeah, two examples. One, the videos. The videos are great. People don't always like to read a communication from me. And actually, I picked up on that from the Tugboat Association that I'm a member of. And again, there was a lot of communication on that. Other leaders were doing that. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. It took me a little bit used to getting to speak within to a red light or to a green light here, but it's turning out much, much better than I thought, and the members really like those videos. The second thing is we used to just have a sit-down, in-person, monthly meeting with everybody, first shift, second shift, and then we would have celebrations along the way, which I don't want to get into right now. But those two things, one of the things we shifted to these live Q&As, and it's turned out to be so huge and so valuable, because again, these are about 30 to 45 minutes, and we cover about 10 to 15 minutes of pertinent information that we need to cover, whatever respective leader manager it is. And then we just open it up for questions. And the questions are we literally have not had a bad question yet. And it's, or a gotcha question, or a question where we just had somebody who was really, really unhappy. We've had all extremely positive, very bright questions as well. So I think we're going to keep that.
Okay, interesting. I'd like to pivot maybe a little bit and maybe just talk about your kind of personal leadership style, how you work. Maybe are you an individual that kind of has kind of a normal structured day? Is this your routine? Kind of talk to us about just what a typical day looks like for Steve at the office.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's about 6 things that I focus on as a leader of the company here. And the top one is providing support to our leadership team. That's number one, because the leadership team is number one. So what I'll do is I'll set up meetings. I have actually just 3 direct reports, because our COO has operations responsibility. So he meets with me, our CFO and our CIO meet with me. But then the other part of that is just kind of walking around. And I call it the walk-arounds, where I get out into manufacturing, I get out onto the floor of sales and customer experience. And I'm just generally talking about personal things, but a lot of times I bring up work, or, hey, what about this? Tell me a little bit more about this. And I uncover some very interesting things that I think are positive, some that I think we need to work on. And I kind of forge that relationship. I know everybody here, and I like that. I like the size. We're about 120 people, and I like that size, so I can know everybody. Now we have some outside sales reps that work outside. So that's what I focus on first. And I have a daily planner. I tell you, I'm old school. So I have this, it's a Cubby planner, and I've got my day in here. I put ABC priorities on it. I found that Microsoft just doesn't work for me. I'm very much a guy who likes to write it down. I write notes on it. I look at what happened the day before, what I accomplished, what the shortfalls of that were. So that's kind of how I operate my day. Also, I've got personal, I've got personal mission statement, that I'll pull out to say, am I doing these things? Am I doing these things well? So that's my day. I focus on those 6 key things that 6 key responsibilities.
Okay. One of the things that I think is always a challenge for me is holding the people that report to me accountable for what they need to do. And, I'm never very good at that, or I don't think I'm very good at that. Has that been something that you naturally feel like you're able to do well, or have you had to work at that? What have been some ways that you've been able to take those 3 direct reports and say, hey, this is what you guys are supposed to be accomplishing, and are you doing it? Are you not doing it? And if not, what's the follow-up?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we had our last leadership meeting. We talked about this, because I felt like we weren't as far along as we should be. We actually had Gail Moat, and I don't know if many of you are familiar, but we've used Gail Moat. She's a lady with a ton of energy. We've used her for like 27 years to help us build teams and collaborative teams. And I reached out to her and said, Gail, 2 years ago, I just want to build a stronger team, and I just don't think we're there yet. So she came up and she just spent time with the managers, which probably was a mistake, because we included all the managers, not just the leader managers. And had I had it to do over again, I would just included the leader managers, because that's really the team that I wanted to focus on. But we sat back, we talked about things that were holding us back. We tried to get everything out. So the biggest thing that I'm working on right now is peer-to-peer communication. And I think we've grown in that area, but I think that's an area that we can continue to grow. Where when I say peer-to-peer, the VP of Sales and Business Development goes right to the VP of Marketing and Customer Experience if there's an issue, and they hammer that out constructively, positively, but constructively, without going to Kyle to say, God, here's the problem. Marketing's not doing this, or vice versa. Sales is not doing that. So that's accountability. That from my perspective, accountability is having authentic peer-to-peer conversations. And if something can't get resolved, yes, call us in or have us in so we can help kind of mediate that process if we're stuck. So that's one of the things that I take a look at. When I meet with the 3 direct reports I have, I say, okay, tell me what's going well, tell me what the challenges are. And then we kind of go through that to say, and then tell me the projects you're working on. We have quarterly projects. Tell me the progress. Are you on track, off track? And if you're off track, tell me why. And then what can I do to help? How can I assist you? A lot of times they're going to say, it's on me. I just got to spend a little bit more time with this. Or they'll say, okay, here's where I'm stuck. And I'll be able to maybe talk about that and offer them more advice on there. My biggest thing is I don't want to solve I've done that too many years where I've tried to solve all the problems. And my biggest thing is I've got to kind of hold myself back sometimes, because I'm sometimes a little quick to say, I know the answer. I'm just gonna get it out. And I've been very disciplined to not do that as much anymore, but just guide them to say, okay, I kind of like the 5 whys. Why are you doing that? And tell me more about this, and get them to see that a little bit better. But accountability is a huge issue for us. So basically, at the end of the day, I said, well, you have to look at it as saying, how do you want those 120 people in the Esop looking at you? Are you performing for them, or are you not? And it's a very simple, yes, I am, or no, I'm not, or I could do better. Because it's not about me so much. It's about, from my perspective, I look at the members out there that are doing great jobs for us, and they expect great leadership. And it's not always easy to have great leadership. So that's something that I think we've made a lot of progress, but Mike, it's something that we continue to work on: better decision-making, more peer-to-peer, and actually more commitment to saying, I don't care what the roadblocks are, we are going to get it done. We're going to get it done. We've made a lot of progress in that area, and I would say we're way ahead of many companies. But if we're going to be good to great, we've got to keep raising the bar, and that's the key thing.
That's an interesting, I think you call it peer-to-peer, where I'm envisioning kind of people at the same level on the organizational structure being free to go to each other and not have to go up through a higher level to deal with problems. How, I'm sure letting that happen occasionally creates outcomes that you maybe wouldn't have done it quite that way as if you were involved in the decision-making process. How have you created that culture where people have permission or people have the comfort level saying, hey, we're going to figure this out, and maybe it wouldn't have been exactly the way Steve would have done it or Kyle would have done it, but at the end of the day, we got it solved. And I imagine that's got to be challenging at times to maybe see that happening from a distance and just let the process work through.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because from my perspective, I want to engage and empower everybody, because everybody's got a job, but everybody's got a job description and responsibilities. So the better that everybody can take ownership and make those decisions, it really frees up the leadership team from having to make those decisions for themselves. And what I find is, yeah, some decisions are done differently than I would make. Many are done much better than I would. And that's really the exciting thing. And I'll let them know that. Part of the thing that we're doing here, Mike, to instill even greater empowerment and responsibility, because empowerment's kind of vague. It's a tough term for people to get their hands around. But we started the University of Metalcraft. I started that about a year and a half ago. We have our first class. We have 12 students through this class, and it's really just a higher level of leadership learning. And so anybody can apply. This doesn't have to be, it can be anybody. It can be somebody in manufacturing. It can be somebody in customer experience. It can be a supervisor. And you don't have to have aspirations that you want to have the title of being a supervisor. It can be you want to be that silent leader on your team, that go-to person. But my whole approach is to empower people, but also to actually try to make people even better. And that's the approach we're taking. So this whole leadership, we meet once every 4 months for about 7 hours. It's a class style. One of the things I make them do is I make them read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and then we go through each habit in each session. And then what we'll do is we'll go through communication. We spend a lot of time on communication, written communication. I'll have Gail up, oral communication. Gail did both of those. And then I make them present. I make everybody present. And they'll work in teams of 3 or 4. I'll give them topics, they'll present. And what I found with all this through University of Metalcraft is that those members are becoming much more confident, much more understanding of what empowered is to make decisions. And we just had, the last course that was in May, I spent about 2 hours on effective business decision making. And when I say that, there was a lot of engagement. I gave them some exercises, I gave them some assignments, and now they feel much more comfortable about making decisions. So my goal is okay, we've got 12, they'll be graduating here soon. Then we're going to start another class, and hopefully we have another 10 or 12. And we just keep going through the organization and until we have everybody at that level. And plus they learn a lot of the things about functionally, what sales do, what's marketing do, what's engineering do. So they learn about the functions of that team. So that's been a lot of fun for me. It's been a huge amount of fun for me.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. You've mentioned, what we always want to ask, kind of how you motivate your team. You've mentioned ESOP a couple different times as part of, maybe for those on the call that might not know what that stands for, could you tell us a little bit about what that ESOP is? And clearly you seem to think that that's a valuable tool for your organization, and kind of tell us why you made the decision to employ that structure and what that means to you.
Sure. Thanks, Mike, for reminding me, because I sometimes throw these acronyms out and I don't clearly define them. But ESOP stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. So it's really a retirement. It's an ERISA retirement plan, much like a 401k is. And Doug did a lot of research on this. The reason we went to an ESOP is when we did a lot of research on that, while we'd always liked the team approach, and we just wanted to get to the next level to say, well, how do we make people owners? How can we get our members owners? I mean, our members, they own cars, they own houses, they're owners. So how do we get that mentality down there? And we had really nice cash bonus programs. We had a very aggressive 401k, but we didn't have that ownership line. The other thing, so one, it was, we wanted to get our members more empowered. We want to give them ownership. And it's worked out tremendously well for us and tremendously well for the members, which I'll get into in a minute. So from an ESOP perspective, there are four main reasons. One, it was a good way to finance the transaction with Wally, because we're a subchapter S company, subchapter S corp, and all the distributions that we would pay outside the ESOP, because we're about a 60% ESOP, distributions within the ESOP are tax-free. There's no taxes on them. So we simply use that money to offset some of that debt structure. The second item is, yes, we wanted to empower people. We wanted to get them as owners. We felt like this would be a very good retirement program. We started this in 2006. Third thing is, we wanted an effective way to transition leadership. We did that with Doug. We were working on that with me. And fourthly, we wanted to keep the company private and local. So my whole goal is to build a company that's 100 years old, not 70, but 100, 150 years old. Long, it's going to be here long after I am. And that was our goal. And it's worked out extremely well for us, because first of all, our members, the contribution that's going into our members' accounts the last few years has averaged double digits. And we also do a 401k match. That's without the 401k match. So you add that with the 401k match, we're 11, 12% contribution. That doesn't even include what the increase in value is or distributions. So the members that have been in the ESOP from the get-go, their account balance is really becoming nice. That, for me as a leader, knowing that people can retire one day with a very, very nice nest egg it's extremely rewarding for me as a leader. And that's really what we're about. So that ESOP has been extremely impactful in us getting that ownership mentality and that empowered mentality to all of our members.
That's excellent. As somebody who sees most of the benefits around town working with clients, you guys are certainly treating your employees well, and you should be commended for that. You've mentioned the Covey book, 7 Habits, a couple different times. Sounds like that's on your must-read list. Are there some other books that you think are books that everyone should have on their bookshelf? And then the second part of the question is, maybe tell us what you're reading right now, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Yeah, we actually, our leadership team put together a library. So we have and not every book hits that, because I've read some leadership books that, maybe not that good. So we built this library up, and we started this only I think 4 or 5 months ago. And just to me, it was advantageous, because I really encourage our leader managers to read as well. I think that's been an effective tool for me as a leader. And so they said, what should we start with? So I have them add books as well. So I haven't read all these books. There's about 50 on the list. I have not read them all. Yeah, certainly Covey is a must-read book. Most of our leader managers have a goal of reading 1 book a quarter. And I think that's a great goal. Now, I've been around other leaders. They say, I have our leadership team read a book a month. And I think, wow, I can't read a book a month. I really can't. So I'm not going to have our leader managers do that. So we start with, we start with, you know, kind of a quarterly thing. Yeah, 7 Habits is a great book. I've got some others here that I'm a big Drucker guy. Peter Drucker is great. And, you know, I've read some that I'm just going to pull out a couple here and show you. So this is a great one. It's called Everybody Matters. A great book. And it's from Bob Chapman. Bob Chapman is a Barry Waymiller. It's a company and it's probably, I think, $4 billion private company in St. Louis. They own a lot of companies. They buy a lot of companies. But his whole philosophy is everybody matters. And how do we get each individual contributing without giving up on them? So that was a fantastic book. Traction by Gino Wickman is all about our vision traction organizer. You can see I've got tons of post-it notes on that. That really drives our strategic plan. We use that. We've been using that since 2012. And that's a good one. I'm a big, as I say, I'm a big Peter Drucker fan. You know, Peter, he was prominent in the 60s and 70s predominantly. And you think, oh, shoot, that wouldn't be today. I mean, you've got to be up to date today. But if you read his principles are principles. They don't really change. So the effective executive is a great one. This one was kind of cool. I went to, this guy spoke at our Tugboat Institute, which I belong to, and it was the investment checklist, the art of in-depth research. And I read it, and at first I started reading it thinking, well, I don't want to be an investor. I mean, I am an investor, but I don't, I mean, Mike, this would be a book, you know, maybe you would like, but it gets involved in all this in-depth research. But then I switched my thinking to say, well, what if somebody wants to invest in our company? What's the checklist? What's the checklist? And so I found it extremely beneficial because it just goes through all the key things that investors want if they're going to invest in your business. And so I looked at it from that perspective. The book I'm reading right now is General McChrystal, and it's I think it's called Leaders. It's a leadership book, and what it does is it gives it's snippets of several leaders, and not all these leaders are great leaders. I mean, what we call, they're all unique leaders, but they're not all what we'd say the kind of leader that we'd want. I mean, some are communists, but he's just taking what's the common theme. How do these people rally the troops, so to speak? And I'm about 2/3 done with that. It's been an effective book, and he spends about 30 pages to each leader. So I've learned a lot about people I've never even actually heard of.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, my curiosity is getting the best of me. I think you've mentioned the Tugboat Association 2 or 3 different times. Are we literally talking about tugboats here, you know, like in the port, or what are we talking about when we say the Tugboat Association?
Yeah, I knew I baited you into that one. I said it a couple of times just to bait you into it.
Knew I couldn't take it.
And you know what? You're very good moderators. You picked up on it and said, I can't let this one go. Well, I'll explain a little bit about tugboat, because it has nothing to do with workboats, tugboats on the Mississippi or any of that. And I don't know, actually, I don't know where they came up with the name, but I became aware of this association, this organization about 3 years ago. And a very, very interesting, smart guy formed this. And he was a guy that was, his life was around PE, private equity. And he spent a lot of time in private equity. And he got disenchanted by private equity. And then he said, I want to do something around private companies, companies that really want to stay private. As I say, this guy is a very bright guy. He's, I think he was an engineer at Cal State. And then he got his MBA at Stanford. So he had a lot of connections with his MBA at Stanford. And he started this organization around 7 P's. Now, I'm probably going to miss one of the P's here, but companies that are purposeful, they have perseverance, they're private, they have profitable growth, they have pragmatic innovation, people first, and their pragmatic sales increase. So I think I got all 7. And so the key ones that really struck with me as I became aware of them were we're purposeful, we're people first, we're definitely people first. Our number one value, which I tell our customers all the time, and they have no bones with it, our number one value is member owner focus. Because if I can do that right, if our leader managers can do that right, they'll do the customer centric focus and they'll do everything else for you. And that's kind of our philosophy. So people first, purposeful, perseverance, because we got through a flood, we got through a great recession, and we've had our challenges as well. So that really struck me. So I learned more about this organization, and it's companies all over. It's actually worldwide, but it's mostly in the U.S. Some of these companies you may be familiar with, and I'm not sure you will, Mike, but maybe the ladies will, unless you watch Hallmark movies around Christmas, like I do with my wife. But Balsam Trees, I don't know if anybody's heard of Balsam Trees. Balsam Hill Trees is one of the members, for instance. A great company, great guy that runs the company. So it's all about founders, CEOs of extremely successful companies. I mean, I feel like, I feel not embarrassed, but I feel very humble being around these people, because I think, oh, wow, in Mason City, Iowa, look and say, yeah, we're okay. These companies and what they're doing in the leadership. So it's all centered around making your company continuing to grow, continuing to work. And what this company did support-wise through COVID was incredible. With the surveys, with the peer, for instance, I'm involved in the circles, what we call circles, where I have 4 other peers within Tugboat. And we just talk. We talk about what the issues are, how we're dealing with them. And as a CEO, that's excellent. So this organization has been transformational for me, and I've been involved in it for 3 years. It's been unbelievably good. And I've tried to recruit some other companies here locally, not successful. And the investment to me it's a big investment, but it's extremely reasonable for what I'm getting out of this. I'm just exposing myself to the best of the best. And they're very open. They're very open to saying, and they're very, very humble leaders. They're very humble. It's incredible. Red Wagon, which is they're part of it. Spike Ball, that's a hot game now. He's part of it. So there's no competitor. That's a beautiful thing. There's nobody that's doing what we're doing in this industry, and I kind of like that.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you for telling us about that. And my observation over the years of high quality leaders of organizations is that almost insatiable desire to learn from others. And it sounds like this is an organization that certainly facilitates that for you and your company. As we're going to start kind of wrapping things up, I'm going to ask if there are people in the audience, if you will, that want to start putting some things into the chat box. If they have some specific questions for Steve, we'll try to get those. And while they're doing that, maybe talk about how I think one of the challenges for all leaders is maybe disconnecting sometimes from the day-to-day operation of your company. Tell us a little bit about how you step back and can have a personal life as an owner, as a manager, as a leader, and what are the things that you've done well or not done well over the years with respect to that?
God, Mike, why'd you have to ask me that question? I mean, that's a tough one for me. It is, but it's a fair question for me. Because as we hired a chief operating officer in Kyle, and I said, okay, you have operations responsibility. I think that's been easier for me to transition that to Kyle, but it's kind of one of those things where I've got to be in the business. The best thing that works for me is to get out of town. literally. Because I can't take a day off and just say, well, I'm going to work in my shop, or, I'm going to read. I'm not very good at that. One of the key transitional things that I was going to do this year, and I did, it didn't work very well, but we spent about 6 weeks in Florida. And part of that is I was going to work a limited period of time. My whole goal was I'm going to disconnect, I'm going to recharge, sharpen the saw, so to speak, and I'm going to work part of the time. I'm not going to not work, but it was going to be relaxing. It was something I've never done before in my life. And I thought that would be healthy for the organization. And we went down in end of February, and then what happened? COVID-19. So I didn't disconnect because I ended up working all the time. So, but that's my goal. And the other thing, I just got to get out. If I get out of town, I'm best at disconnect. If I stay in town, I'm not very good at it.
Okay.
But I have exercise routines. I have exercise routines. I do have some meditation. I get my mind off of it. But I still, that's something I got to work at. I'm overly connected.
Are you going to give the Florida thing another go at it next year if we're able to travel a little freer?
Yeah, we are.
A bad year to give it a try.
Absolutely, we are, and we're definitely going to. I mean, it was great being in nice weather, and there's no complaints. But it just didn't, obviously it didn't work. But I understood why, and I understood that I needed to immerse myself. I could not immerse myself. We had, the business was at stake. So.
Sure. Okay, we're starting to get a few questions in here on the chat. So just tell us about your thoughts. It sounds like your company and your organization is all in on North Iowa. Are you bullish on the future of our local region here and economy?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. With some of the things we have going on. In fact, we just went by downtown, right by the Willow Creek and the apartments and condos, and I'm thinking, wow, this looks so much. Our skyline looks so much different, and it's wonderful because one of the successful things we've been able to do, or at least I think, is recruit the younger generation. And our demographics look much, much different than many manufacturers. We're continuing to lower that age in our demographics. It's very important what we're doing in this community. And I think with the leadership that we have and the things that the chamber's doing are marvelous. Those all support us. We need, my thought is we need a strong community if we're going to be strong. If we have a community that's not very strong, it's hard, very hard to get young people in this town. So our whole landscape of what's happening in downtown, when we get back to somewhat of a norm, is going to be tremendous. People will be out and about, they'll be eating outside, and they'll be going to a hockey game, they'll be at the condos. I mean, it's just going to be more vibrant downtown, and that's been really important to our younger members. So I'm bullish on it.
Excellent. You mentioned bringing young people in, and you talked as we were getting ready to start today about an intern that you have with your organization. Where do you guys have a typical path that you recruit those interns from, or how do you find them, and what do you do with them when you get them here?
Yeah, great question. And this year we scaled back just because of the business. We scaled back the interns, so we only brought one in. But typically we're recruiting out of Iowa State because a couple of different things. One, strong engineering program. So whether we're looking at software engineering, it may sound foreign that we have software engineers, but we do. We actually have a division called ARC Business Systems in Clear Lake. And ARC Business Systems in Clear Lake, small division that we have a GM running. What they're doing is they're providing a complete solution for asset tracking for small and medium-sized customers. And we see that as really, really strong in the future. And we really wanted to get that out of the building because it's just a different mindset. And we're looking, and we will be looking for another location for disaster planning. as well as if we do move into producing inlays, reshoring inlays. Now, from an internship, yeah, we look at engineering, we look at mechanical engineering, we look at industrial engineering, because we have specific projects going in manufacturing. This young lady is a software engineer, and so we've got projects that she can do, like, and make an immediate impact on. So those are the things that we're primarily looking at, but we've also brought in accounting interns out of NIAC. So we use NIAC as well. We've had a couple people through NIAC, IT interns out of NIAC as well. So NIAC has been a great source. NIAC is so strong, and that's such a hidden gem in North Iowa. And from a community college perspective, very strong. We're fortunate to have NIAC. We're fortunate to have the leadership that's out of NIAC as well.
I've heard you speak about NIAC and your support of them in the past. So that certainly sounds like it's a big part of what you guys do. Well, maybe I think we've got one more question here, and then I'll give you a chance for some last thoughts. If you were just, kind of brand new out of college, starting your professional career, is there anything that you would have done differently? Is there a decision that you look back and think, boy, I would have turned left instead of right there?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't know squat coming out of college, but I thought I did. And then when I got through Caterpillar training, I thought I still thought I did. And the biggest mistake I made is I really didn't read as much as I should, and I didn't seek out that mentor guidance that would elevate my ability to think initially. And so that was void for me for a few years. And so if I had anything to do over again, I would have done that immediately, saying, you know what, I don't know squat, and recognize that, but how can I become the expert? I'm going to read more. I'm going to listen to different perspectives, and I'm going to have a couple of mentors. So as somebody that's starting out, the biggest thing there is doing that and networking. Yes.
Perfect. Well, you know what? I think that's maybe a great thought to end on, is how you can find those mentors and do that networking. Kativa, is there anything you want to add here at the end, or should we turn Steve back over to his day?
I think that's all I have. Did anybody have any verbal questions that maybe didn't get into the chat box because you're on your phone? Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Rebecca with Alliance Energy.
Hi, Becca.
Steve, you said you had switched to producing face shields recently. Is that going to be your main focus for manufacturing, or are you going to keep your other, I can't recall what it was, I think you made little plates or something like that, plates for different types of needs there. So what is your future mission on your manufacturing side?
Yeah, great question. Appreciate that. There's no question. Some of the face shields has been transformational for us to get through this period of time, and we wouldn't have been in that position without COVID. So it's kind of a interesting proposition, right? Catch-22. We have COVID, but we have this business. The short answer is it's going to be an interim, although there will be one process and one account that will probably continue on just because they're FDA approved, and they'll continue to, we think they're going to continue to buy, but we look at this for another 6 months as very, very good business, but it really is not our core business. I mean, this is adding what I'd say is a substantial amount of revenue for us, but we don't want to lose sight of what we do well, and that is that we simply help people track, identify, and control assets, people, and equipment using whatever technology is the best, whether it's barcode or RFID, and that's really our knitting. And we want to stay with our knitting. So no, long-term, in fact, actually long-term, we will not be producing the entire face mask because that's not or face shield, I should say. I'm sorry, not mask, face shield. We'll just be producing the shield portion of that for another company that will package that.
Any other last questions out there? All right, well, maybe not hearing any. Kativa, you want to wrap us up?
Yes, thank you everybody for being on this call today. We did record it. I hope my audio is not cutting out now, but we did record this so we can play it back, and anybody who had to dip out or anything. Thank you, Steve, for taking your time out of your day to do this. We really appreciate that you're in our community and that Metalcraft's here and that you guys are making strides in a lot of different ways. And we're just so happy you could join us. So if anybody has any questions afterwards or needs Steve's contact information, I will send out an email after this with some of the resources that he gave throughout, and feel free to contact us. And I'm sure Steve would be happy if you guys happen to contact him or need additional resources. So, all right.
Well, thanks a lot,
Thank you,
Kativa, thanks a lot for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It's been good, and don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any other questions. But yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.